to exemplify the wide range of possibilities which the tragic plays may offer towards this direction. Unlike other living beings, humans possess an awareness of their own mortality, which gives rise to a rather paradoxical relationship with death. While the inevitability of death is intellectually acknowledged, there is often an inclination to distance oneself from this reality, or even deny it, as though death were an event that affects others, but not oneself. This awareness of human finitude, commonly referred to as death awareness, frequently prompts a profound reassessment of life, particularly in the face of impending death, leading to a deeper appreciation of life's most essential values. This topic has been widely explored in philosophy, particularly in existential philosophy. In the AI era, contemporary discussions and ethical dilemmas surrounding death have become increasingly prominent, particularly in relation to developments in biological enhancement, life extension technologies, and the pursuit of immortality. Death is viewed as a technical problem to solve, with ideas like, for example, digitally preserving consciousness. Yet fundamental questions remain about whether, for example, digital copies can truly be conscious or experience reality. Ultimately, mortality is a core part of the human experience, and escaping death could diminish what it means to be human. Embracing death awareness, reflection, and empathy are essential to our nature. Yet death remains a taboo topic in medical practice. As Catherine Treadway remarks in the perspective, the quote, we don't talk, she refers to the doctors, the physicians, we don't talk easily about how hard it is to lose a patient, to confront death. After the death of a patient, she refers to the discussion of the medical management and complications in detail, but there was nothing regarding the feelings these events evoked, often reducing them in the formal case presentation, the single word, unfortunate. According to several studies, the exposure to physical vulnerability increases the fear of mortality. Shapiro has demonstrated that health professionals, often unconsciously, attempt to maintain a protective distance from the fear of death by perceiving themselves as fundamentally different and separate from the patients. The reflection on death and the acceptance of an individual's own mortality do not automatically reduce death anxiety. Nevertheless, it has been suggested that death awareness may generate positive outcomes for staff frequently exposed to death, as it can lead to self-reflection and the realization of the shared human fate. Literature can offer a safe way to articulate thoughts and feelings, which cannot be easily expressed and realized, especially those
related. Vaso?
Yes? Hello.
Hi, sorry to bother you or interrupt. We're just seeing you on the initial slide of your presentation. I assume you were meaning to show us further slides.
One moment, why? Of course, yes.
I'm sorry I didn't say anything earlier.
Sorry. Now, I have the screen, I have the share.
Maybe stop the share and start it again, because we're just seeing it frozen.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for letting me all know. All right. Screens. We are here. Share. All right.
Okay, so now we see the first slide.
All
So
right.
if you turn on the slideshow.
One
Also, you can
moment.
turn on the slideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Now?
I don't read Greek, but I know what you're doing.
Is it okay now?
No, we're still seeing the same thing, just the first slide. In the PowerPoint.
One moment. Let me see if we can do it like this. Now?
Perfect.
Now it's this?
Yes. Literature and death awareness. Wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry, we missed the previous ones, but never mind.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Sorry about that. So basically, we had the PowerPoint, but all right. So from now on, anyway, the most important part is the text that we are going to discuss now. So this is not a great issue. Okay, now we are moving to the antiquity. All right. Literature can actually offer the safe way to articulate thoughts and feelings, which cannot be easily expressed and realized, especially those related to the contemplation of mortality. Ancient Greek literary works in particular consistently reflect a deep engagement with death. Within this framework, we now turn to an examination of selected ancient texts. So we start with Homer's Odyssey. In Homer's Odyssey, for example, the famous Nekia includes the scene where Odysseus meets Achilles in Hades. Achilles stresses the vanity of a good or glorious death. He says that I would rather live and work for someone else, even for a man without land and with little wealth, than be the ruler of the dead in the underworld. The tragic nature of human beings is also emphasized in Iliad 18, where Achilles' immortal horses are weeping for Patroclus' death, emphasizing the common fate of all men. Philosophy was also regarded as the study of death in antiquity. For example, in Phaedo, those who practice philosophy correctly are training for death, and to them, of all people, death is least frightening. Turning to Greek tragedy, a basic feature of the tragic plays is that the tragedians did not aim to provide definitive answers to the theme they explored. Instead, they problematized universal aspects of human nature, particularly concerning the limits of human existence. Within this context, and in a sense profoundly concerned with the theme of death, it's particularly striking that death scenes are conventionally kept off stage. Instead of being visually represented, such events are typically conveyed through the narration of a messenger or another character fulfilling that function. With few exceptions, death remains off stage and is rendered visible to the audience only through verbal description rather than direct representation. One of the tragedies which has received attention in both the end-of-life program at Harvard Medical School and the theater of war for frontline medical providers, readings of plays mentioned above, was Sophocles' Tragedy. Okay. Hercules' suffering is vividly and visually represented. The hero even pleads his son to assist him commit suicide, which is presented as Hercules' only means of escape from all this agonizing misery. The acceptance of mortality in this play comes as the result of inevitable suffering, as we see in the final scene with Hercules in Trachenia. This is the lines we're going to focus. After having gained the confirmation of Helios that he will offer his father relief from his terrible pains, there is a significant change in Hercules, who is now ready to end his life with joy, dignity, and courage to face death. Especially this aligns 1259 to 63. We need to stress here that Hercules' death is unchosen, though. Come now, before you stir up this pain again. Oh, my sturdy soul, put a brace of steel to my lips and hold back the cries. This is cause for joy, this final, though unchosen achievement. Yet, another, less frequently examined play may also offer valuable insights into death and mortality awareness. In Oedipus at Colonus, Oedipus, the self-blinded old man, who has been wandering for years, arrives at Colonus, a precinct of Athens, with his two daughters. He knows that this is his final destination. Theseus, the king of Athens, shows compassion toward Oedipus and justifies this attitude on the basis of his understanding of the common human fate and vulnerability. Consistent with this reflection is the reference of the chorus, who acts as the communal voice in Greek tragedy, to death as isotelestos, coming at the end to all alike, when the focus is gradually drawn to Oedipus' final exit. The way of Oedipus' death remains unknown to the audience, and only indirectly, among others through the words of Oedipus himself, are the spectators prepared for what will follow. This is especially shown in lines 1520 to 38. Later on, the messenger, the conventional character of tragedy who presents what happens off stage, narrates what happened when they reached the place of Oedipus' death. He presents a series of plausible assumptions regarding the possible circumstances of Oedipus' mysterious death, none of which, notably, occurred in this instance. No fiery thunderbolt ended him, nor any whirlwind swirling of the sea. Either some herald came down from the gods, or the basis of the earth, the world below, in favor of him, opened painlessly. The messenger concludes by emphasizing how miraculous and exceptional this death was. What sort of death he met, that man? There is no human but for Theseus who can say. He was sent on without distress, not by disease, no cries of pain, but in a way, for any human, wonderful. This is Taplin's translation. At the end, the messenger simply confirms Oedipus' remarkable death, because it is rare for a mortal to have the power to willfully accept his death without cries and plaints. What is stressed here, in contrast to tragedy, is that there is no disease and pain in the case of Oedipus, as in Hercules' suffering, which leads to death. Oedipus is not forced to die because of suffering. Having realized that his life is ending, he willingly looks death full in the face, without any complaint or misery. In conclusion, in Oedipus at Colonus and Trachenia, death reveals essential aspects of human nature and highlights the meaning found in confronting mortality. These plays exemplify the ways in which death awareness and its discussion can offer fruitful insights for the incorporation of classical texts into the body of literature used within narrative medicine and the medical humanities, demonstrating the significant potential of ancient works to enrich these fields. The classical texts can contribute to a more inclusive approach to healthcare and to the blurring of the boundaries between health professionals and the suffering or dying other. We have some selected bibliography here for those who are interested in the topic. I would like to thank you very much, and I apologize for the slides problem. My slides were fine, but you couldn't see them, unfortunately. Anyway, I hope that you managed to follow the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Ramsey. Thank you. Let me turn on the slides. Let me share my screen. Minutes, please. If you have questions, but let me turn on the slides. Okay. Okay, so that was an amazing session, Q. Okay, so I have a question.
Yes, please.
You said something about that is one of the main things in Greek tragedies, and that the plays ask questions more than they answer them. So what do you think the ancient audience, do you think were so drawn to these kind of stories?
Stories of suffering and pain and death. Yes, what is fascinating about Greek tragedy is that the tragedians present the problems, the themes, of course, mythology, the mythical place or the mythical background on which they draw includes many of these stories. But the distinctive handling in Greek tragedy is that there is a problematization. You will not find an easy solution. For example, in plays like Philoctetes, which is an excellent example of suffering, and also of an ethical dilemma of the young hero, Neoptolemus. It is quite interesting that in the ending of the play, there is an ambiguity. And the ambiguity is that we might consider Neoptolemus the example of an ethical choice. He decides to help the disabled, the suffering character who is Philoctetes. But in the mythical background, and this is shown at the end of the play, there is a kind of precaution of Hercules, a warning by Hercules. We know from the mythological background that he will proceed to a sacrilege and he will kill Priam. So in Greek tragedy, even though things appear in a certain way, they are quite ambiguous. And the same applies to Hercules as well in Tragedy, who is suffering like a woman, as Sophocles says. But at the end, he realizes the importance of accepting death. And this is one of the features which has made this tragedy very popular in recent discussions of death and death awareness. I selected Oedipus at Kolonos because the play has not been analyzed enough in terms of death awareness and death. And there is also an ambiguity in this play as well. In general, in Greek tragedy, one of the reasons for this difficulty, let's say, or the avoidance of giving straight answers is because the purpose was to think, to ask the spectators to participate, and to make judgments on themselves. The purpose was to suffer with the characters and to reach catharsis in the way that the spectators, each spectator could understand or feel according to their own experiences. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
I gave 3 examples. I'm sorry, but I hope it was clear.
Yeah,
Thank you very
I have
much.
a question in the chat. Since Greek pottery seems to show such death scenes, are there any thoughts why the treatment of death is different between the tragedies and other media?
Can you repeat the second part, please?
Okay.
Yes.
Are there any thoughts why the treatment of death is different between the tragedy and other media? In
the representation of Greek tragedy, the fact that the death scenes are not visible. I suppose this is a question, why death scenes are not visible. This is a convention in Greek tragedy, and most likely one of the reasons for this was that death was regarded as a kind of pollution, as a kind of miasma, as we say. So in general, death scenes are not common, as a visual representation in Greek tragedy. Now, we should always have in mind that the surviving tragedies that we can have and enjoy until today are only a very minor part of the tragedies written in the 5th century BC, for example. The surviving tragedies are very few, so we cannot actually make any judgments about the general corpus of tragedies. Possibly if we had the whole corpus, our discussion might have been quite different. Based on the existing tragedies, death scenes, the visualization of death is considered a kind of convention, a theatrical convention, that it is always kept invisible. But possibly a papyrus is read, and it might change this interpretation of conventions in Greek tragedy. So we are looking forward to a wider corpus of texts, which might offer us different insights into a lot of topics regarding Greek tragedies, including death. Thank you very much for the question.
So much. Thank you so much for today, for joining us this morning, and for sharing your work on Greek tragedy and narrative medicine. Is truly thought-provoking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Success in all the conference.
Yes, thanks. All right. Okay, so we're going to move on to this. Before that, I'm going to have to share the meaning, please. That's tragedy. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next. Share. All right. So we're going to be bringing up our second speaker for today. Our next presentation, titled Demons of Remedy. Hold on. Oh my goodness, sorry. Okay. I think I should be running a slideshow. A minute, please. Okay. Stop sharing on my screen. Okay, so our next presentation, titled Themes of Remedies, Religious and Supernatural Mediations for Illness in Japanese Talismanic Arts by Rumi Nandi. Dr. Nandi is an assistant professor in the Department of English and Cultural Studies, Price University. At Rice University, Pune campus, with over a decade of teaching experience, her work spans digital humanities, narratology, new media studies, post-humanism, orthography, and Japanese cultural studies. She is a holistic scholar and was awarded the Solidarity Scholarship from the University of Lausanne. She also participated in the Erasmus Faculty Exchange Program at Baba University under the Creative Writing category. Dr. Nandi has published widely in leading international journals and third volumes, exploring the narrative, political discourse, media ecologies, and the evolving influence of technology and storytelling. Dr. Nandi, the screen is yours. We cannot wait to have you show us more of what you have.
Hello. I would like to share my screen. I have a presentation.
Yes. Okay, I need to stop sharing. All right, go ahead. You're welcome, Dr. Nandi.
Is this visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you, Esther, for introducing me. So my topic for today is of demons and remedies, religious and supernatural mediation of illness in Japanese talismanic art. This is how the presentation will go. I'll be elaborating on each of these topics separately. The idea of disease and spiritual belief, how they're interconnected, talismanic culture as a response to illness, Japan's Edo period and the rise of ukiyo-e, Japan's epidemic print as visual medicine, Mononoke as modern reinterpretation, Amabi and COVID-19 digital return of ancient logic, and tying all of these together to the concept of how image functions as ritual medicine for different epidemics, mostly epidemics and pandemics. So when we think about disease as a form of punishment is something that is considered across different cultures. And in order to fight or prevent diseases, there are different forms of talismans, again, available across different cultures. So this is a shot of various kinds of talismanic art across different cultures. And so this is a very prevalent belief, whichever religious belief system we follow. This idea of a talisman, a printed paper talisman most often, can prevent diseases or cure diseases is something which is inherently understood by the human society at large. I will be focusing mainly on Japanese talismanic art, which is based around the idea of woodblock prints, which were very common during the Edo period, spanning from 1603 to 1868. And these prints were specifically used for epidemics like cholera, measles, and smallpox. So this is what my paper centers around. Now, first, to give an idea of the Edo period is considered to be one of the most stable period in the history of Japan, and it was run by the Tokugawa shogunate. During this period, there was an enforcement of isolation. So Japan was mainly isolated from the rest of the world except Korea and China. And most of these prevalent belief systems centered around Japan's understanding of religion. And most of these religious practices were overlaps between Shintoism and Buddhism combined together. So when we talk about disease, it is not only something which is connected to the physical ailment, but it also talks about the condition of the society, how we experience diseases or how we interact with diseases is very much centered around how the society functions, what are the hierarchical structure of the society. So one of the defining features of Edo period is the concept of the floating world. During the Edo period, since it is considered to be one of the most politically stable period, there was a rise of the merchant class, and the merchant class had enough money in their hand. And in order to cater to their changing tastes, there were different entertainment districts that were created. The floating world refers to this entertainment district, mainly because of the transient nature of pleasure and entertainment. The idea of the woodblock print, or which in the Japanese term is called ukiyo-e, is centered around the entertainment district where kabuki and the geisha practices were prevalent. This is an example of ukiyo-e. The woodblock prints would be a form of printing which was done using a wood carving on which, on the ridges of the carving, the ink was touched and then it was printed. And then these original prints would be sent to the printers for mass circulation. So because it became cheaper, ukiyo-e was easily available to the masses as well. So though it started in the Kabuki district and the Geisha district, it spread across Japan and it started talking about different practices of Japan. Now, during this period, Japan was ravished by three main epidemics, like I mentioned earlier, measles, smallpox, and cholera. Now, the idea, again, put forth in the Chronicles of Japan, which is called the Nihon Shoki, that there are deities which are connected to epidemic. Now, these deities, because the very idea of God is extremely convoluted in Japanese Shintoism practice mainly, because the spirits can either be evil or can be good. So the deities in this respect could also be responsible for the diseases as well be responsible for the prevention of the diseases. So based around this, the deities were called Ekijin. And here I have given examples of mainly three Ekijins. This is a small snapshot of different Ekijins that were prevalent in Japanese culture. The center one is called Hakutaku. This particular figure was very prevalent for fighting cholera, to prevent cholera. And this here at the left-hand corner is a combination of three different structures, the Daruma, which is this figure in the center, Shoki, or the demon queller, who was known for fighting the epidemic demons. Okay? And they have been combined together along with Minamoto, who was a prevalent, well-known hero in Japan. And this has been printed in red because the red color is again associated with preventing the entry of evil spirit. So these form of paper talismans would either be kept under the pillow or would be stuck onto the door, on the walls, to keep the evil spirits or the diseases away. Is everything visible? Like the slides are changing, right?
We still have the Ekitrain slide.
Yeah, okay. Now, these epidemic prints can be categorized into 3 separate categories. The first one is called Hashikai. Hashika refers to measles. This particular image is called Defeating the Measles Demon. In this particular image, as you can see, measles has been transformed into an anthropomorphic creature where it has been personified. And how do we understand that it is measles? It's the red dots across the entire body. And in order to fight the demon, it is the common people who have come forward using different forms of household articles. Okay, so one of the prevalent medicines that was considered during this period was to keep an empty bucket on top of your head. Okay, so these are different household articles that could be used to fight measles. So what this image also showcases is the agency that the common man has against fighting a particular disease. So in case of epidemic, because it is something that could not be explained, there were no cures as such, and it was raging and destroying populations. That's why the epidemics came to be considered as supernatural, because it could not be naturally explained. And hence this was considered to be the act of the supernatural. Hence, in order to fight it, you have to cater to supernatural agencies, along with the human agency that we can see in this particular image. This is again another talisman, paper talisman. So when I'm referring to the term talisman, I'm referring to paper talisman because this is only catering to the paintings or the woodblock prints that I mentioned earlier. So this particular image shows the central figure who is called Utafuku. Utafuku is the goddess of good times. And again, the fact that she has been colored in red is to keep disease away. Along with that, what we can see, like I said, the bucket, inverted bucket over the head. You can also see fruits being personified here. So these are some of the things that will help in keeping measles away from, mostly this is with respect to children. Okay? Because if there is happiness and joy, since Otafuku is the goddess of good fortune, if there is happiness and joy among children, that also could help in countering the spread of measles. The next category of print is the Hoshoi. Hosho refers to smallpox. In this particular image, what we can see here, this is the smallpox demon. And the demon is being driven away by Minamoto, the superhero in the sense, not superhero, sorry, a general who was prominently featured across Japanese history. And he becomes a representative of the divine intervention, coming forward to drive away the smallpox demon. Again, as you can see, the prevalence of the color red. This is again a different kind of Hoshoi painting, where you can see a child with different toys, okay, which is again to keep away the demons as well as to help the children overcome this period of difficulty. And along with that, you have different enchantments written on. So the images are not only for aesthetic purpose, but it together consists of a ritual practice. Okay? So just the image in itself would not suffice. The enchantment also had to be recited, okay? And these had to be placed in proper places for it to work against the different epidemics. Korora or cholera. The term korora refers to the Japanese term for cholera. Here again, we can see the cholera demon which is again a mix of different kinds of animals. We can see tiger, half fox, all of them combined into one. Vinegar was one of the materials used to fight against cholera. So here we can see the people, the citizens trying to fight against cholera, driving it away, okay, along with the different enchantments written on it. Now, what I'm trying to do in this paper is not only talking about the ancient understanding of the woodblock print, but how it has been reimagined in the contemporary period. So whenever I think of ancient studies, I always try to locate it within how it can be categorized within this contemporary space as well. Because ancient studies does not just exist in the ancient period, but it has certain continuation into the contemporary period. And in order to draw that, I am referring to one anime series called Mononoke. There's a newer Mononoke movie also, which was released in 2024. Now, why I'm referring to this particular series is the anime style that has been used is the ukiyo-e style, the woodblock print style, the textured paper that we can see along with the color combination. All of this is replicating the woodblock print prevalent during the Edo period. So this particular character, he's the protagonist, he is known as the medicine man. However, he does not deal with any form of medicine. He goes across different parts of Edo period, Japan during the Edo period, where he fights demons, which is causing some kind of illness or some kind of apparitions to appear. Okay, this series is more, to my understanding, it's more psychological illness that it is dealing with. But again, the idea of talisman is very prevalent in this entire anime series. So this is a screenshot from the first episode of the series. Here we can see the medicine man surrounded by the talisman in a circular pattern, which again connects to the Buddhist idea of a circle as a holy symbol. Okay? And these are the talismans that he is rotating in a circle to keep the demon away. This is also the continuation of the same episode. And in this, we can see the talismans have been pasted across the room to stop the demon from venturing any further. Okay? So this is important because it is using the woodblock print style. Okay? So it is drawing from the very idea of woodblock prints being used as talismans during the Edo period. The anime is set in the Edo period, and it is also talking about talismans as medicine, because the medicine man only deals with the talismans. He does not give any medicines. Coming to a much more contemporary understanding of the idea of talisman. During the COVID period, Amabi became a Instagram and Twitter trend. It was started by a manga artist, Shigeoka Hide, who first shared this particular image on Twitter, now X. Okay? He shared this. Amabi is also a yokai. Yokai is spirit. Like I said, the understanding of demons and gods in Japanese tradition is very fine-lined. So yokai in this particular story, with respect to the story of Amabi, Amabi is said to have appeared from the sea, arises out of the sea, gives the painting to a warrior, her painting to a warrior, and says that if you keep this painting with you, then you will be saved from the oncoming epidemic. Okay? So this became a trend during the COVID-19 period, again, because COVID-19 is something, a pandemic which led to the global lockdown is something which no one has experienced earlier. and it was unexplicable. It is something that appeared to be very supernatural because the very first image when I saw across the entire world, everything is shut down, was very, very scary. Okay. And in this period where there are no vaccines yet, there are no medicines per se, this became a trend. Okay. And it became very popular across Instagram. There were different kinds of elements being made. There were cakes being made. There were different kinds of clay art being made out of Amabi, okay? Which again further became more popular when Kyoto University Library shared this image, which is an original Amabi woodblock print from the Edo period. And this started the trend. It became so popular that Japan used the figure of Amabi as an emblem for the COVID-19 fighting unit. So the very understanding of talismanic art as medicine for epidemic and then charting it to the present age, the modern period, where in spite of the availability of different forms of medicines, where the scientific understanding is more prevalent than the non-scientific understanding, even in this space, the idea of talismanic art in the form of woodblock print still persists. Okay? And it is continuing to persist. It does not just end with the Edo period, but it has come up again. It has been reimagined and it still continues to exist. So that was my presentation. Thank you for your patient listening. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nandi. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you. Okay, we'll be taking questions, but first, I think I have my own question. You talked about talismanic arts, and share more about, were these things everyone had access to back in the day, or is it something that is just for a particular class?
Could you please repeat? I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, I meant, were this talisman used by everyone? Did everyone have access to it, or is it just available to a particular class of people?
No, this was accessible to everyone because the prints were cheap. The original woodblock print would be one copy. That would be sent to the printers who would then make mass-produced prints, small prints. And that was easily available to everyone. And also because during the Edo period, money became more prevalent in the hands of the people. Even for the lower classes, it was accessible because they had the money. Due to the stable condition of the political situation in Japan, money was available and these prints were cheap. So it was accessible to everyone.
Okay. So while we still wait for questions from that, do you think, or do you believe that this is they influence how we view health and everything happening in today's world? Like, do you think it influences anything that happens today, especially COVID-19? It inspires how people in Japan respond to health problems, like what happened during COVID?
Yeah, I think when you have epidemics or pandemics of this nature, you can't explain it through scientific understanding. Yes, it took some time, even during the COVID period. So the initial idea was, why is this happening? Okay. And yes, there was talk of global warming and that the world is headed towards destruction because we have created so much of problem, because there's so much of corruption. All of these ideas come into existence. So it is no longer just viewed as a medical problem, but as a result of the way human beings have lived. Okay. And then that is where faith comes in. When we cannot explain something is where we want to take the route of faith. Okay. And then we believe, okay, maybe keeping this image will help me to survive this because I don't know whether I'm going to survive tomorrow or not. So yeah, it influences how we interact with the disease and what we understand about the disease. Am I audible? Hello? Hello?
Hello, everyone. Apologies for the slight issue here. Not sure what happened. I think we're trying to get Esther back online. Oh, okay. She's back in the Zoom. Dr. Nandi, were we in the middle of questions? I apologize. I had stepped away for a moment.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, Dr. Nandi. We truly appreciate your patience and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a wonderful talk.
It's nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Okay. Let me share my slide. Next. Okay, so next is going to be team presentations from SASA. SASA team. Yeah. And the first thing that I'll be presenting here today is going to be fundraising team. Ilani is here yet. Or we'll be fundraising team will be presenting first. Ilani Kwizo. Melanie. Okay, what's here?
Well, why don't we just go ahead with Partika's presentation then?
Oh, I think she's around, so I'll just take a moment to do something else, wait for her.
Hi, Partika.
Yeah.
Hello, I can start my presentation.
That'd be wonderful.
Let me just share my screen. I hope it's visible and I'm audible fine.
Yes, you are.
Great, thanks. So, hi everyone. I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. I'm Parthika and I'm here to introduce you to SASA's live events team. And on behalf of Lauren Kubosh, also give you a quick peek into our social media team. So firstly, the live events team at SASA conducts monthly book clubs, master classes, and reading groups. While I will be going into each in deep in just a minute to give you a quick glimpse, you'll hear from your favorite authors, explore global histories through exciting discussions, and dive into the fascinating topics across time and culture with our events. I manage the team with Lauren Kubosh, Habiba Hussein Al-Taib, MGA Panki, and our amazing interns. The QR code that you see on the screen will take you straight to our events page for everything I'm about to cover. To talk about our reading groups, they are one of our oldest projects being started in 2020. We run them twice a year in summer and winter, and they are aimed at connecting those interested in the ancient world through a range of topics explored in live weekly discussions. With this project, we want to continue to open the world of ancient studies to students in high school, college, and beyond. Each group is led by a SASA educational ambassador who is a postgrad or PhD student specializing in that particular area of study. Each year, we try to cover as many topics across cultures. Like, for example, this year we had groups on Egyptian history, Indian history, on Shakespeare, Mesoamerican history, classics, demonology, and so on. There is one on climate change scheduled on June 23. The images that you see are from the reading groups page on our website, which is under the projects tab. Again, the QR code would lead you to that page. Here we save the live syllabus from our previous groups and classes, so they have a list of readings on the topics, so it is a great resource for anyone writing papers on them and stuff. Our summer and winter reading groups are sponsored by Gladys Cribble-Delmas Foundation and the Society for Classical Studies. So a huge shout out to them. This is how we are able to pay our group leaders and bring the resources to you free of cost. So we are very grateful for their support. We also run book clubs almost every month. These clubs are your chance to pick the brains of some of your favorite ancient history authors. From fiction to non-fiction, fantasy to reality, we explore the world of books which are set in ancient times, focus on ancient history, and help you learn more through amazing descriptive imagery of the ancient world. The clubs are organized by MJ Penke, who interviews the invited authors. You can see the list of some of our past clubs. We have done about 30 of these till now, if I'm not wrong. Most of our events are live streamed and the recording is posted on our YouTube channel, except for the reading groups, which are private Zoom events. So if you go to our channel, you can find playlists consisting of the book clubs, masterclasses, and others. We also have a book club on the death and life of Iphigenia by J. Suzanne Wilson, scheduled on September 14. We have our bookshop where you can find discount on all of the book club of the books and novels featured during the book club live streams. 10% of the proceeds go to SASA then, so it is an amazing way of contributing to the organization. The Crewing the Ship post-ancient partnership highlights have taken a pause for now, but we are aiming to revive them soon. Port Ancient is basically a partnership network through which we share a variety of projects that focus on different aspects of ancient studies. These projects range from operas to video projects to podcasts and websites, and even more scholarly pursuits. They all set anchor at our Port Ancient. Our dedicated outreach team works to recruit partners that share our vision. We believe that these projects will help pave the way to save ancient studies via public outreach, accessibility, and engagement with various audiences. Some of our partners include World Virtual Tours, History with Kaylee, Religion for Breakfast, Mesoamerican Studies Online, Digital Hammurabi, and others, some of who are also our streaming partners, so thank you to them. Just a little about the RQ Gaming Live. RQ Gaming is a new field that integrates the methods of archaeological discovery in the environment of video games using interactive and collaborative play to teach and learn about the past. SASA gamers explore the fascinating world of RQ Gaming, where gaming technology and archaeology meet. You can join us as we navigate through popular video games that have connections to ancient world, what they did right, what they did wrong, and how we can use them as tools of learning. So how these basically work is that a gamer from SASA plays through the game, which is streamed on Twitch. Sometimes we also have experts who tell us about the history. Julie Levy is in fact picking up Outer Wilds on August 2nd, along with expert Kieran Acquisto, who is an art historian specializing in ancient Greek and Roman art, and will provide the live commentary for the game, so make sure you do not miss that out. We would also like to take this moment to give a shout out to the outgoing members of SASA family, Dr. Kate Minetti, Alex Wendewell, and David Sereno-Lozano. A little about the social media team. The social media team is led by Lauren Kubosh and is responsible for everything that you see on the social media and our website. They work hard to keep our members and viewers up to date with everything that SASA does, from promoting our live events, AEMs, and Access database, to also helping with the website and SASA Oracle, which have their own teams. It is their job to make sure that the ancient world and everything SASA and our partners are doing to promote and protect ancient studies stays relevant, intriguing, and fun for the general public. You can find us on all major social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn by just looking up Save Ancient Studies. So thank you for your time. I'll now hand it over to Esther.
Thank you so much, Kartika. Thank you. Okay. That was a wonderful. Is it working, guys? Okay, so we're going to move on to Melanie, the fundraising team. I think she's here now. So okay, I don't think she'll be present. Let's move on. Alright, so our next presentation is titled let me turn the slides. Minutes. Okay, all right. Our next presenter is Lynn. This presentation is titled Visualizing Water, Sanitation, and Environmentally Certified Education's Hellenic Arts, presented by Nimai Sami Ahmed. Let me just turn on the slides, then we go from there. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, Esther. I think we've had a little hitch here that one of our presenters is not yet available. So I think I'm going to take over for a little bit and talk to you about some of SASA's wonderful programming. Share with you specifically. Esther, let me share screen now, okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay. I want to talk to you today about SASA's Archaeogaming Education Program. Now, by archaeogaming, we mean the use of commercial video games that are entertainment-based video games that millions of people around the world play for their historical content. Now, many video games are set in historical settings, or they're set in fantasy settings that are based on things that come from real historical realities. So archaeogaming is a subject whereby scholars either criticize and investigate the representations in these video games or in board games or in other games of the historical content in these games. But at the same time, SASA has begun using this for educational purposes. We believe that video games are really rife with possibilities for engagement about ancient studies topics with today's audiences. So I'd like to show you some of what we're doing. And give me a second to just pull up my screen. One second, please. Okay. Sorry for the short delay. There we go. Now I should be able to turn this on to slideshow. Well, my colleague Esther is working on finding our next presenter. View, slideshow. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to skip through some of the prelims here that I already talked about earlier this morning. Now, the basic question stems from, how do we make antiquity or the ancient world accessible to students? And SASA has been working on this for the last 4 years, even though SASA's been around for 5 years. We've been working on the archaeogaming education program for 4 years. So far, most of the work we've done has been aimed at middle school classrooms, and we've created 6 different archaeogaming education modules. I'll talk about what those are in a little while. Those have been used in classrooms across the country and across the world. And also some high school teachers and college professors have taken up these archaeogaming education modules, and specifically the videos that we make from them, which are made out of live footage from video games, historical-based video games. And they've been used in classrooms and engaged students in a strong, impactful way. So, this is a screenshot from one of our archaeogaming education videos that you can see right here, that are set up as sort of tours through a topic, an ancient topic, an ancient culture that uses the footage from the video games. So strengths of these videos are that they're flexible, they can be used asynchronously, they require no gaming knowledge or console on the part of the educator, which is an important requirement because that makes it so that any teacher, anywhere, as long as they have a screen that they can show the videos on, or even if they don't, then they can ask students to look at view the videos on their own outside of the classroom. They can use our modules without needing to actually play the games and without really needing to understand individual games themselves. So using entertainment-based video games that students are already familiar with and really enjoy playing encourages active learning and participation. At the same time, this helps instructors be able to focus their lessons around something that's already designed to convey content about a topic. We've created them together in consultation with experts and education consultants, and they meet state and federal learning standards for middle school in most states across the U.S. Now, there's a lot of value for SASA and for ancient studies, and soon I'm going to get to the videos and try to show you some of them to give you a flavor for what they look like. This is our advisory board. We have Dr. Tina Rosala, Dr. William Farley, Dr. Esther Wright, Dr. Deborah Trusty. So what's an archaeo gaming education module made of? First, we have the video itself. We've got a PowerPoint that teachers can use to take out slides and insert straight into their own lesson slides if they're using slides. We've got a teacher's packet that comes with a bunch of different sections. It gives an overview of the module, and it gives some information that teachers can take and copy and paste into syllabi or into reports that they must give sometimes to different administrators to explain what the what this educational co-curricular package is that they'll be using. And then it gives also some activities and quizzes and further readings. So the module themes that we have to date are, we have Viking diaspora, medieval medicine. I guess these are the ones that we're focusing on, but we also have Mesopotamia and Egypt, an early urban civilization, as well as Greece, and one on Roman roads, and the sixth one that I'm forgetting. And there are two in development right now, one on ancient Egypt and one on feudal Japan, that should be ready for release at the end of August. Now, I'm going to try to play for you one of the videos. Let's see if this is the right link. I don't think this is the right link. Hold on. Let's see if we can watch the Viking diaspora archaeo gaming education video for a few minutes, and you'll get a flavor for what we've been able to create, these wonderful video games to help teach people about how the Vikings moved from Scandinavian areas around the North Sea, and then were able to really go all over the world. Give me a moment, please. I'm just loading. Actually, I have a good idea. I'm going to download this instead of streaming it. That'll take an extra second or two. Okay. Getting warmer. Now, while that's downloading, let me go take you back a step or two. Okay. You're seeing my wonderful tabs all over the place. Thank you. There we go. Now, these are different things that you would see in the archaeo gaming education module. So there are screens where that go through different issues within the topic. So here within the Viking trade module, Viking diaspora module. We have raiding, trade, religion, and slavery. These are major topics that are of historical interest about the Vikings. And these are the types of questions that go on that are addressed through this video. Now, in another one of our modules, in the medieval medicine module, often in the modules there is a main narrator, or from whose perspective and voice the video is narrated. So in the medieval medicine module, we have Galen, who's talking about the different issues that he comes across, and we watch as a medieval monk goes to the archives and looks for scrolls about how to handle a specific illness, and then uses the information they find there to put together a remedy, and then treats his patient in that way. So what I also like to tell you right now is about the next steps that we're taking. Before I'm going to show you the video for a little bit, the next steps that we're taking with our Gaming Education modules is that we had been awarded a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities so that we can push the modules to create them for the undergraduate level. And we were so happy about that, and we had gotten started on the project before NEH funding was pulled. Right now, we're working on recouping that funding through other sources. We're about halfway towards funding the first undergraduate education module, and we will be working on that. Hopefully, within the next half year, we'll start working on the module. And there really are, we had wonderful collaborators already lined up. We'll re-engage with them, and we're going to be applying for further funding and looking for funding from more private sources. Now, I believe we are downloaded. There we go. Let me see if we can play this video and that it actually works. First, I'm going to share my screen. And let's hope. Okay.
Could it be the vicious and dangerous raiders of the ocean? Is it a television show that depicts drama and losing galore? Is it a popular football team? Honestly, these stereotypes get so tiresome, and I should know. Impacted them, impacted the people they met. The first thing that helped connect the Viking diaspora is trade. Vikings coupled specifically to trade, making expeditions both near and far. By trading what they had, they were able to get practical objects and also luxury goods that were incredibly valuable. My personal favorite is the story of a carnelian bead. Carnelian is a gemstone found in India. A 9th century Viking grave in England contained one of these beads. It had travelled all the way across the world to arrive in England and was no doubt valued by the Viking that had carried it. Another story that I adore is that of a Buddha statue found in Sweden. Buddhism originated from India, and this statue was made in Kashmir, northern India. While the Vikings probably didn't make it all the way as far as India, they were able to make it to trading posts. These two amazing artifacts show how global the Viking diaspora was. To transport such large quantities of trade goods required even larger ships. One of the largest cargo ships was called a nar and could hold as much as 24 tons. That's close to what modern semi-trucks today carry. These large cargo ships frequently went across oceans from Scandinavia to the northern shores of England. Once these ships landed in port, they would be offloaded and the goods put into market to be sold to people from around Europe. This trade port of Jorvik was said to be one of the busiest ports in medieval Europe. People came from far and wide to trade in unique goods. Irons, furs, amber, chopped up bits of silver, called hack silver, and even more were all traded along these routes. Interactions between buyer and seller wouldn't be as simple as swiping a credit card and being on your way. Currency and coins were uncommon, so this meant most traders and buyers still used the barter system. This system means that two people would agree on the terms of a trade without money. Essentially, they would swap things of similar weight or value. For example, the merchant could trade one gold necklace for 4 walrus tusks. It's very hard to hunt walrus. As a result, markets and harbours were very lively and bustling places where new things arrived daily with new people to meet. This wasn't the last stop for goods, though. Vikings were master shipbuilders and navigators. Many times goods would be taken from these large ports, put into smaller longships, and sailed up riverways to trade with smaller villages and settlements, like a FedEx truck delivering a package to your home. With so many Vikings trading with the native population, they exchanged goods, stories, and cultures. One of the ways we can see this is through our own language. For example, the English word skirt comes from the Old Norse word skirta, and skipper, meaning the captain of a ship, is related to the Old Norse skipper, which means ship. These cultural interactions between Norse and English left little artifacts hidden in our language. But it's important to remember that the Vikings were impacted by us as much as we were influenced by them. A big way we can see this is religion. We've all heard of Norse myth. Thor and his hammer, Odin and his one eye, and Loki and his tricks. This complicated system of stories, gods, and festivals made up what we call Norse religion. But this changed the more the Vikings came into contact with other people. Christianity was something practiced by people in Europe and was fairly new to the Vikings. Norse gods like Loki and Thor didn't disappear overnight, but the two religions did begin to mingle. There are stones in England that show both Christian and pagan symbols. Across the North Sea in Sweden, one of the first Christian churches was built in 830 in a port town called Birka, right at the very start of the Viking Age. The church was constructed with the help of a Christian saint, Alfred, whose statue still resides there today. This shows how beliefs are fluid and constantly change. The more we talk to each other, the more we all learn and grow and develop. Culture is a two-way street with all groups influencing each other. Another big impact was slavery. You might not automatically associate Vikings with slavery, but it was a massive part of their trade network. At this time, there was a big slave trade throughout Europe and Western Asia, with people being sold and transported. When the Vikings would trade or raid a settlement, they'd bring more than just things back with them. They would also bring people themselves. These slaves would live in Viking society, and they would bring their own cultures with them. Did you know that the second largest genetic group in modern Iceland is Irish? This is due to Irish enslaved people coming to Iceland and mixing with the Viking population there and passing on their genetic makeup. Sometimes the Vikings ended up staying in the places they raided and building settlements there. Go to modern-day Ireland or England, and you'll see evidence of Viking presence in the buildings, place names, and even language. Vikings are more than people with fancy hair, big hammers, and crazy helmets. They were innovators, builders, tradesmen, and rulers who explored the world. These journeys helped bring communities together and develop, and even created new settlements and identities. The same way today we live in a global, interconnected world, the Vikings helped bridge the worlds of medieval Europe and Asia and bring them closer to each other. So the next time you're studying history, remember, there's more to the past than first meets the eye. They don't call me the goddess of wisdom for nothing.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that taste of an Archeo Gaming education video. We're going to continue the conference now with some other guest speakers. I'm going to hand things back over to Esther to introduce our next speaker. I think we're beginning the next session.
Thank you so much, David. Okay, so we're moving on to the next speaker now. Our next presentation is titled Climate Change and Health During the Little Ice Age, the Skeletal Evidence, and it will be presented by Leon Cornell Cowell. Leon is currently a master's student in funerary archaeology at the University of York. His research focuses on osteology, paleontology, and bioarchaeology. He previously earned a BSc in archaeology and is currently preparing his undergraduate dissertation for publication. He has excavation experience across medieval Roman and prehistoric sites in Yorkshire and Greece, working with animal bones, pottery, and human remains. Outside of his studies, Leon volunteers with a local museum where he organizes monthly talks and has also served as SASA's outreach team leader since 2021. Leon has over 5 years of experience as a professional chef and aims to pursue a PhD to further explore health in the past. Without saying too much, Leon, join me to welcome him so he can begin his presentation. You're welcome, Leon.
Hi, thanks, Esther. Let me just share my screen. Why won't it let me? There we go. Okay, can everyone see my slides? That's working?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Sometimes it doesn't work, so I just check in. Okay, so my presentation, I'll get right into it. I'm looking at the effects of climate change had on health in the past, specifically, as Esther said, using osteoarchaeology and bioarchaeology as my main data set source. So during this presentation, we're going to look specifically at respiratory conditions and how they're impacted by climate in the past. And then we'll have a kind of broader discussion on the effects of climate in the past and whether bioarchaeology can be used as a proxy for the effects of climate or even just as a proxy directly. So before I start, just because I know this is an interdisciplinary conference, just some quick definitions. So osteoarchaeology and bioarchaeology generally means the study of human remains. And then a further branch from this is paleopathology, which is looking at disease in the past, specifically skeletal disease and disease that appears on the skeleton. And in this study, we're going to be using that to look at paleoclimate, which is essentially reconstructing past climates. You're doing this through archaeobotany, ice cores, lake sediment cores, and also the historic record in the right time periods. And I am going to be looking at maxillary sinusitis, but I'm going to go into this in a couple of slides, so please just bear with me. So I'm sure most people are probably aware climate change isn't a new thing. Throughout history and even beyond, climate has kind of peaked and troughed. You have hot periods and cold periods, such as, for example, the last ice age and when it ended. If you go to North Africa, you have the end of the African humid period, which led to what we now know as the Sahara. And then you have events such as the Bronze Age collapse, which is not necessarily climatic, but it is heavily associated. You have the Roman warm period, which was a warm period linked with the rise and decline of the Roman Empire. And you have the kind of cold period that followed that, the late antiquity Little Ice Age, which was followed by the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age. And then you have the kind of current anthropogenic global warming. It is worth noting the current global warming is actually far warmer than any of the previous warm periods. It's not a natural thing. Don't let climate deniers try to tell you that. So the two periods I'm going to cover in this presentation are the medieval warm period, which lasted around 400, 500 years during what you would probably consider the high medieval period. It's linked to the kind of rise of most of Europe's kind of medieval kingdoms, such as France, the Holy Roman Empire. It's also linked to the Norse colonization of Greenland, which is quite fitting considering the video we've just watched. And as well, on the negative aspect, if you go to South America, it's also linked to the decline of the classical Maya through droughts and various famines and resource wars because of that. And then after that, we're going to be looking at the Little Ice Age, which was a kind of intermittent series of cold periods, which lasted throughout the late and post-medieval periods. It is linked to events such as the Black Death and the various bubonic plagues and epidemics that happened throughout this period, as well as the decline of the Ming Dynasty in China and various kind of revolutions that were happening in Europe in the post-medieval period. And just if you want to know more about these, because I've barely covered them, I recommend this book by the now late Brian Fagan, who just passed away the other week. It's very accessible and very easy to read. So you're probably wondering, how exactly does climate affect health? Well, there are a number of ways, and this has been studied clinically, sociologically, ecologically, and there are kind of three main strands. The first one, as I've put there, is nutritional deficiencies, with breadbasket regions warming up. You're getting a lot more crop failure. You're also getting more extreme weather, such as flooding, hurricanes, and tornado, due to changing air temperatures, which is killing crops. The second one, which kind of leads on from that, is conflict specifically over resource. So I have here on this figure, I have a list of a map showing places that are vulnerable to what are termed water wars, or fights over water. And then the final one, you get an increase in pathogens, which is you get bacteria and viruses, but the one that most people focus on is helminths, such as malaria and other tropical diseases. And there are a number of bioarchaeological studies that have been done on this. I know this is a lot, but just bear with me. These kind of follow a similar trend to the kind of clinical studies. You have the nutritional deficiencies such as scurvy and rickets. You have decrease in stature linked to that. You have violence and trauma for similar reasons as before, but there's also another branch looking at persecution of witches due to that. I do have an article coming out on that fairly soon. Then you have the infections, so they look at plague. That's a big one historically. Malaria, as you can see, a lot of studies on that. And finally, what I'm going to be covering in this presentation, respiratory conditions due to the drying of the air, more higher amounts of pathogens and pollution. So what I'm going to be looking at in this study is maxillary sinusitis. And what that is essentially, it's a sinus infection of the hollow part of the bone in your cheeks, which is where mucus is produced. And what happens is smoke and pollution, etc., can get into these areas and cause infections and inflammation. And this has been linked to climate through the kind of dry air, causing it to dry up, leaving it more vulnerable to infection. And what this does, and what this results is, you end up with this kind of new bone look, as you see on this diagram here. On the in the sinuses, you end up with like spicules and porosity. So I'll move straight on to my results now. Well, no, my methods, I should say. This study was a large-scale database study where I've searched the literature and I've taken the data from all the literature, including published and unpublished sources. Sticking specifically to the UK, I've then divided the sites between the two periods based on a mixture of absolute, so radiocarbon and historical dating, and relative dating through artifacts. We have a total of 144 different sites containing around 42,000 human remains, as you can see, split up between 16,000 and 32,000 per period. And then I've divided this data between age, sex, and site type. I've also mapped it, and I've also had a go at making a chronology, as you'll see. So now onto my results, this time definitely. So the first thing we're looking at is the crude prevalence of these two conditions. And as you can see, when I look at all the remains, including non-adults, we have a difference of about 1%. But when we move on to, when we remove the non-adults, because children are less vulnerable to infections of the skeletal remains, you see we do have a fairly similar amount. I'm still trying to figure out the statistics of this. One test came up saying that it was not significant, but when I retried it, it said it was. So I'm not going to say for definite if it is significant or not until I've tested that. It's still a working hypothesis, but there is a definite difference between the two just based off this. And then the next thing I've done is I've split them into the demographics. And it is worth noting here, when we're talking about sex, we mean the biological skeletal sex, not the gender. So as you can see, in the medieval warm period, we have a lot more females. Well, not a lot more, we have about 20 more females. And then in the Little Ice Age, you can see it's pretty even, but we have a lot more non-adults. And what's for both of these, the results were not statistically, there was no statistical significance. And the next thing I've done is I've categorized the sites based on location, whether they're urban or rural. As you can see in both, in terms of the infection rates, urban has a much higher rate, over double. with actually over double for both of them. But it is worth noting for this actually that both categories had more urban sites in general due to how British archaeology works and how excavations are planned. So what I've then done, and this is a little bit experimental, is I've done a chronology. So what you have here is you have the one axis is the percentage on each site, and the other axis is the date. And as you can see, the medieval one period doesn't actually have any kind of trends to it. There's no specific centuries which have any, whereas the Little Ice Age, you can see here, I highlighted it, around the 18th, 19th century is the high point. And I'm going to come to why this is later on in the discussion, but and then finally, for my results in terms of geographic distribution, as you can see on both, it's a fairly even spread, but I think the northeast of England, this area around Leeds, has quite a lot. And then obviously London, because there will be some data bias there. That's where most of the excavations of cemeteries have taken place. So now this is the hard part. How exactly do we interpret all these numbers and percentages and such? I do want to add a caveat. This isn't in progress. This is still in progress. I've not got any final conclusions. So if people do have any ideas and they want to contact me, go ahead. That would be helpful. There might be a significant difference between the two periods. There might not be. Like I said, I'm still testing it. The sexes, while there wasn't any significant difference, there was more for the medieval one period. And my current working hypothesis is that this is probably due to the kind of the gender-based division of labor, with women being around the fire more in the medieval period. There's also a high chance that during the Little Ice Age, we had a much more urbanized Britain. As I've said, there was more urban graveyards during this period, and there was a larger amount of remains from that period. This probably means that with industrialization, as you saw, the 18th and 19th centuries, and the kind of the industrial areas of Britain were the most affected. This probably means that both sexes were equally affected by the pollution. There is also the hypothesis when it comes to the Little Ice Age, there was several volcanic eruptions going on around the world, which would have caused ash clouds to fall in various places. This could have had an effect, but like I said, that's not for definite. It's a big guess. And then finally, because I've been doing this for my dissertation, I've been looking at the Roman warm period and the Dark Age cool period, as it's called here. As you can see here, that the peak of the Roman warm period is much warmer than the medieval warm period. This could have caused a difference in the data because my results for my dissertation were definitely statistically significant. And this could have caused a difference. It also could be the Little Ice Age's kind of incremental nature, which caused the change. I do invite, if anyone has any ideas and theories as to why this might be and wants to discuss it, I do invite them to contact me. I'm pretty sure my email is on the SASA website somewhere. So, in conclusion, there are definitely links between climate and health. However, the kind of interpreting the data, as you've seen, is complicated, and you end up jumping through lots of hoops. There's a lot of guessing, lots of maybes and probablys. You do have to consider other factors such as urbanization, industrialization. You probably even have to consider social class in terms of vulnerability. However, I haven't had the capacity to do this due to time. And ultimately, as you saw on my literature review part, there's a lot of conditions which have been highlighted but not necessarily well studied. So I think that further research is needed on this topic. Here's my bibliography. I'd like to thank